easiest and laziest way for any state government, or even a federal government, to deny its citizens a benefit to which they're entitled is to wrap it up in so much paperwork, make people jump through so many hoops to get that benefit that they just give up in confusion. And that's what Greg Abbott, one of the nation's cruelest governors, is doing right now in Texas. Now, it's not just Texas. There are 11 states that have refused to expand Medicaid. And when the pandemic started, the federal government passed a law saying that states couldn't throw people off their Medicaid. Medicaid, by the way, is a fairly consequential program. It covers roughly half of all American children, because roughly half of all American children live in poverty, which should be shocking. It pays for 40% of childbirths. It covers 1 in 5 parents, and it's the largest funder of long-term care for the elderly. It's also a key funder of substance abuse and addiction treatment, and it covers more people than Medicare. So this is not some fringe program, right? This is essential to the health care of the United States. You know, Greg Abbott is, well, here's how it works. When the protection for your being on Medicaid, and it's principally, you know, covering low-income working people, people who have a job, people who are you know, where their pay is low enough that they are basically living in poverty and they don't have health care benefits. And so Medicaid steps in. And in this regard, it essentially subsidizes employers. But that's a whole nother rant for another day. But the way that states typically determine ongoing eligibility, in other words, you're on Medicaid, and, you know, the state wants to know, are you still eligible for Medicaid? And because it's income related, you know, what they do is they look at your W-2s. You know, how much income did you report? They look at your tax returns. I mean, the states have a pile of information on us. And so, you know, most states just redetermine your eligibility every year simply by looking at their own data and saying, yep, okay, another year, you're good. But Texas is forcing people to say, yes, I'm still eligible, here's my proof. And the result of that is that 500,000 Texans have been dropped from the Medicaid rolls, many of them not even knowing that they had to redefine their eligibility. Many of them having gotten a notice from the state that they failed to respond to, or that they just didn't know what to do with because it was so confusing. Now, why is Greg Abbott and why are these Republican governors all across the country doing this? Well, you know, it turns out that they're doing this because there's a group of right-wing billionaires in America who think that Americans shouldn't have health care paid for by the government, paid for with their taxes. These are, you know, these right-wing billionaires who pay an average of 3.4% income tax, don't want to pay anything more in income tax that might then go to Medicaid, that might then support health care for low-income working people. This is part of an agenda that was laid out in the 1970s by Lewis Powell in the Powell Memo, and that was turned into a political agenda in 1980 by David Koch when he ran for vice president of the United States on the Libertarian ticket. And his party platform was unambiguous. It said, we urge the repeal of federal campaign finance laws and the immediate abolition of the despotic Federal Election Commission. We favor the abolition of Medicare and Medicaid programs. We oppose any compulsory insurance or tax-supported plan to provide health services. We also favor the deregulation of the medical insurance industry. We favor the repeal of Social Security. We propose the abolition of the governmental post office. We oppose all personal and corporate income taxation, including capital gains taxes. We support the eventual repeal of all taxation. All criminal and civil sanctions against tax evasion should be terminated immediately. We support the repeal of all taxes on the income or property of private schools, whether profit or nonprofit. We support the abolition of the Environmental Protection Agency. We advocate the complete separation of education and state. Government ownership, operation, regulation, and subsidy of schools and colleges should be ended. We advocate the abolition of the Food and Drug Administration. But we specifically oppose laws requiring an individual to buy or use self-protection equipment, such as seatbelts, airbags, or crash helmets. We call for the privatization of inland waterways. We oppose all government welfare, relief projects, and aid to the poor programs. We call for the repeal of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, We call for the abolition of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. We support the repeal of all state usury laws. Now, this was David Kochs' platform that he ran for vice president on. And increasingly, it is now the GOP, or at least the MAGA wing of the Republican Party's platform as well. This is what these guys are saying. They're basically saying that the world is made up of makers and takers. The makers are the right-wing billionaires. The takers are all those people who want their Medicaid. And, you know, they're just moochers. And to hell with them. You know, why, these 11 Republican governors ask, should the billionaires who fund them be forced at the barrel of an IRS agent's gun to pay income taxes that go to support the health insurance of some guy who's working and earning $7.50 an hour? Why should they do that, say these Republican governors? Now, we know that 45,000 Americans die every year because they lack health insurance. 45,000 Americans die every year because they lack health insurance. And, you know, here we have 11 states that are the bulk of the places in America where there is no health insurance for low-income people, and where you've got large numbers of uninsured. This is just wrong. I mean, you know, this campaign to reshape America, you know, 11 states denying health care, 45,000 Americans dying every year, almost 1,000 Americans a week dying from lack of health insurance, and these Republican governors are doubling down on it. And now 500,000 people just since April in Texas have been knocked off the Medicaid rolls. 500,000 Texans. So, I mean, this should tell you everything you need to know about the GOP, first off. And secondly, that the right-wing billionaires who fund the Republican Party have a very specific agenda. Turn America into a third world nation.